Hey, Tayson Rockefeller, Teton Valley Realty. I'm standing on the western boundary of the western parcel of two parcels bordering National Forest. Each of them are approximately 2 acres. The western 2 acres, the western boundary, borders very close to being parallel and in line with the road of which I'm pointing my camera. This is bordering National Forest. I followed a small footpath trail up along what we believe to be close to the boundary. You can see on an overview mapping system all the way up to the National Forest boundary of the western parcel. Both parcels, boundary, National Forest, on their south, crawling through a fence here, on their south end. This trail continues up through the National Forest. This fence, it's possible that it is the actual, that I'm climbing over now, the actual western boundary of the western parcel. So that you're aware, the western parcel is currently offered at $65,000. The eastern 2 acres is offered at $75,000. I rode my bike here, hence the heavy breathing, and I'm going to ride east along the southern boundary. Sorry about the poor quality of the video here. And then I'm going to stop at different areas. Now, somewhere between these two parcels, along this fence that borders the National Forest, is going to be the boundary running north and south for the eastern 2 acres offered at $75,000. So again, I'll stop here. You'll see I'm continuing to ride along the National Forest side of the two 2 acre parcels, totaling 4 acres total. You can see a housetop of a roof down there. I'm pointing my camera, I'm not parallel with that yet. I'm pointing my camera in the eastern northern direction, northeastern direction. So as you can see, just an old livestock trail or an access trail. I can't use both brakes because I'm holding my phone with one hand. Bear with me while I go down this steep decline. Now, as you can see, both properties slope towards the north pretty dramatically at this point. Obviously, the National Forest is elevated. Then it has some topography running east-west. Obviously, I'm traveling east now. Declining quite a bit. Okay, so I'm going to stop one more time. As you can see, nothing really to be looking at other than we're along the National Forest. Now, in the video, or in the listing, it mentions several creeks and streams. Now, there are some springs on the property, not necessarily any creeks. It is a wet piece of property, both parcels. And when I get down on the access road, you'll see what I mean. Now I'm a little bit uphill of the properties now. Meaning the fence for the southern boundary is below me, and hopefully I can smooth this video out a little bit at this point. Okay, now running from west to east, there are 3 parcels in total. The third parcel is also about 2 acres. It boundaries this road that I'm traveling down. It is not for sale at this time. And if you're again on a mapping system, you can see what I mean. If you go to the actual listing report and click the map tab, you'll see a third parcel with its rounded edge. That's the curve I just took. So now I'm heading west. I just took that corner. Everything back this way is that adjacent parcel. Now, this road is obviously close to the northern edge of both 2-acre parcels. That green sign is on the western of the 2-acre parcels. These aspen trees are very close to the boundary, the western boundary of the western parcel. The southern boundary was at that National Forest fence line I was just at. So I'm going to run parallel with the National Forest, and you can see this slopes off to a meadow on this piece and similar on the other piece. Now, the eastern boundary, or the western boundary of the eastern parcel, is very close to where the front of my pickup truck is, and that's where the western parcel begins. I may have said western parcel on this parcel. I'm facing east now. That was the eastern parcel, 2 acres. This is the western. So the boundary between the 2-acre parcels is approximately where this wooden stake is. You can see 3 survey stakes. They're all in the same approximate location. Very likely that that's the corner. This piece also has some meadow here. One thing to note, this is the $65,000 piece. The eastern piece is $75,000, as I mentioned when I was traveling along the National Forest. One thing to note about the western parcel is this pre-existing fence. It belongs to the neighbor. Idaho's boundary and fence laws state that in the event a fence is pre-existing for a number of years or a certain amount of time, that can become the actual boundary. I don't think this is his intention. There's only a short fence that actually runs on the property. This is along the road, and the reason he did that was to keep people out of his irrigation screen. If you can hear some gurgling, you've got some water here. Now, speaking of the springs that come up in the meadows of the 2 parcels on the northern boundary where it's flat, that's because of runoff from the National Forest, as well as just the nature of this particular part of the valley. That being said, it is possible that this could become, or could be, wetland, in which a wetland delineation would be needed. As you can see, the groundwater is here. You can see some springs gurgling through here, so it's very pretty, though it may require a delineation, then Corps of Engineers approval, and of course a fill for your driveway and home site. Your home site likely wouldn't need a fill because it would be presumably elevated on the foothill. This trail is approximately where I started my video, in line with the road. Therefore, this would be the western parcel, western boundary. 2 acres running that way to those wooden stakes that I pointed out. Then the adjacent 2 acres being offered for sale. 2 acres up to the third parcel that is not being offered for sale that I mentioned when I came around the corner. That road and south to the National Forest boundary. So, to conclude this shaky, maybe not so helpful video, this fence belongs to the neighbor. It's on the western parcel. The western parcel is 2 acres. The western parcel has more vegetation than the eastern parcel, though the bottom is still a meadow. There is some spring water. It is wet ground. It travels through the meadow, up the foothills, you can see the trees about where the National Forest boundary is above. The eastern parcel, also 2 acres, borders the one parcel on the corner. Also a meadow down in the bottom, follows this National Forest access road. More meadow, less vegetation, still is going to incline. You can see some of these trees, some of them on the property, the farther ones in the back in the National Forest, I'm sure. And the adjacent neighbor's property, it's also about 2 acres. Again, the boundary is about where those 3 trees are, running perpendicular to the National Forest boundary, of which I wrote down. Questions to ask yourself on this property. Would a wetland delineation be required? That's hard to say without involving the Corps of Engineers, which you might be shooting yourself in the foot by doing that. Access. This road is National Forest access. Can it be used as an easement for the property? We all assume so. This fence, if you're interested in the western, slightly cheaper parcel as opposed to the eastern parcel at $75,000, will the neighbor consider that part of his ground, this corner? And if he did, would you simply use this to access your property? In an offer, a survey would be a good idea to ask the seller to do as part of your inspection to determine exactly where the corner of the property is and if you have room to get in here with the driveway. Also, the neighbor's contact information might not be a bad idea unless, of course, the neighbor has interest. I don't think that they do. Tayson Rockefeller, I hope this video helps. Thanks.